Welcome back, everyone. This demonstration will be focusing on cross-contour line drawing. So for our Art 101 course, and the assignment calls for an organic object. So here I have an apple, and in the textbook they used an apple as the example as well, so I just thought let's just continue that. When you read in your textbook, it'll talk about what an organic object is versus a manufactured object. So an organic object means that at some point it was living, or it grows, or it's natural. Typically, organic objects aren't always symmetrical, but at some point they were alive. And then manufactured items, say for instance this retractable eraser is manufactured. And so it's it's made in a factory and it's produced. It's not natural. Was never living, and it's all basically artificial. So that's the difference between those. All right. So in the cross contour line drawing, you're basically using a series of lines in a grid-like manner to show empathy for the surface of this object. So it's a different kind of a way to help your brain understand this idea of attempting to draw 3 dimensions, but still using lines, not using values or shading or anything of that sort. So the first part is to use a 4B pencil, and you're going to be creating basically the sketch will be first. And if you remember, you're holding the pencil like this, and it gives you the ability where you're actually drawing with the side of the tip of the pencil so that the line is light and smoky, and it's loose, and you're basically just dealing with the basic shapes and no details. So before we get started, I just want to let you know that the camera is pointing down the apple, and I'm looking at the apple from this point of view, so I'll be drawing it from this point of view. So bear with me as this occurs. I want to go about life size, so I can just start with a circle, and then from the circle, using a little bit more looking and sketching and looking, I want to try and spend more time looking than actual drawing so that I can attempt to get this to look more photoreal, or excuse me, not photoreal, but more real than something more artificial. So there's the basic shape, and I'm just going to kind of lay in the highlights, which I see on the top, which are here, and there's a highlight here, and so these lines are just kind of breaking up the surface of the apple where there's light differences. Okay. So once my sketch is finished, then I want to address the cast shadow. So looking at the cast shadow that's being thrown by the light source, and so that I've got one going this way, you can see that right here. Then I've got one here, which I could indicate, because I have multiple light sources, so that's what creates these multiple cast shadows. So let's put those in. And if you want, you can put in where the edge of the paper is, and that's just basically a horizon line, and it creates kind of a sense of depth. Alright, so there's the basic sketch. So now I want to come in with my erasers, and I want to clean up the sketch in such a manner that I can then come in with more of a varied line approach to not only clean it up, but get it to look a little bit more descriptive in terms of the sketch lines. So just using a dragging approach with the eraser, I then come back in, and you notice I'm now holding the pencil as though I'm writing, so it's more of a precision handhold. And then I slowly follow. I kind of have the remnants of my sketch line, so I have like something to kind of follow, but then I just spend a little bit more particular time looking and diagnosing the edge of this apple. So on this side, since my light source, main light source, is coming from over here, it's pretty light on this side. And then on this side, use my retractable eraser. Again, I'm not pressing very hard, I'm just dragging it so it dilutes my sketch line. And then I come in and diagnose this real slow. I'm looking at the outside edge, so that defining line. And then this side goes into shadow. So I'm going to use just a little bit more pressure to show that. Okay. And I've got this area here. I'm going to come into the stem. Looking at the texture that the stem has, so it's not just a straight line, but really looking at the kind of the roughness of it. Paying close attention to the dimension of the stem. And the underside here is a lot darker, so I'm going to use more pressure just to get that to look like that. Here's the cast shadow it's making on the apple. Okay, so there's the apple, and I've cleaned it up. And I'm just going to slightly outline this main cast shadow. And I won't worry about this one. Let's just leave it. Okay, so for the cross contour lines, you may be looking at your particular organic object at home and going, I don't get how do I know where to put these lines and how do they go down? So as you're looking at your object, you notice that it is in 3D, but yeah, how am I going to show that with lines basically covering the surface in a grid-like manner to help show the empathy or the terrain or the surface of the apple so that it looks like it's in 3 dimensions or has volume. So one way you can do that is you can physically take your apple and take a marker to it and basically draw lines on it. And as you draw lines physically on this object, obviously they'll obey this rounded surface. And then you can use that as a guideline to get your brain to understand, okay, so when this line comes out where the stem is and goes up, over, and then down the side, and then disappears out of sight, that's this line right here. So if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to do that. You can take a Sharpie or any kind of a marker and basically draw on the surface of your particular organic object. And that works really well, especially when you're trying to figure out what to do. All right, I'm going to just go back and I'm going to use the apple that I have, and I'm going to start applying my cross contour lines. So I want to do this in such a manner that it is going to be something similar to like when we look at a globe, and in a globe, in the example in the handout, it talks about how the latitude and longitude lines describe these lines on the Earth. It basically represents these areas, but it obeys the globe or the round spherical surface of it. So I'm going to assert that here, like a fountain, this is where the lines will be coming out of and then flowing up and out of this hole over the edge, and then they'll go down and then disappear. So let's do that. So looking at that, the line will come up, come over the edge, go down the side of the apple, and then disappear out of sight. The next one comes out, comes down, following the apple's surface, and then disappears. The next one comes out, and disappears. I do the next one. Disappears. The next one just goes to that edge. Okay, so think of it like there's water welling up like a fountain, and it's just drooling over the side and then disappearing. Okay, so those are those lines, and now you want to cross those. So you basically use concentric circles to show that. So let's start with the top one. And I'm rounding around, basically almost like a funnel, around this, underneath the stem. I'll do one inside a little bit closer. I'll do the next one. And you see how they cross over the lines that descend vertically. Rounding around. And you'll notice that as they round and they come towards the edge, they pinch in and they round again. So you want to round it. You don't want to have the line just come to the edge like that. You want the line to come and round into it, just like that. So it gives more of a three-dimensional look. This look will give it more of a flat look. So rounding. When I come to the edge, I round it up. Alright, so there's the apple with cross contour lines. Now the cross contour lines for the cast shadow are real easy. You basically have just one set of lines that go in the direction that the cast shadow is being casted. And you notice these lines are straight. And the reason for that is, if I want to show empathy for this surface right here is flat. This surface is a three-dimensional object. It's a form, so it has a dimension. This has no dimension, it's just flat. Okay? So to make this look 3D, you have the lines wrap around it. To make this look flat, you just have the lines go straight. Okay? And that's how you can make that distinction or separation between those two surfaces. Alright, now I'm going to come in and wrap, because my stem is essentially kind of a textured looking like cylinder. So I'm just doing little half moon rounding lines to assert and get it to look like it's rounded. Okay, and I don't have to do one down the center like I've done with these lines. The other thing I wanted to show you is that you'll notice that the lines here, out here, they're really wide apart. But as things move towards the edge, they get closer together. And if you look at your example in the handout with the globe, you'll notice that too. When lines get close to the edge, they get closer together. Okay? So this right here is real important. Make sure your line does not just stop at the edge. Make sure that line wraps. Okay? Wraps around. Alright, so that's cross contour line drawing of a basic organic object. We started with the sketch, then we did the line variation where we cleaned it up, and on this side is the shadow, so the line is a lot more weighted or heavier. I varied it. On this side the line is very light, delicate, and so that shows that variation. In the stem it's heavier on the bottom of it to give it to look like it has shadow on the underside. And I also showed the cast shadow, and then the wrapping of the cross contour lines, and the distinction between a 3D object and a flat surface. Alright, well, so thank you for watching. I hope that was helpful and gives you a better idea of how to approach this particular kind of drawing. Catch you next time.